Let's talk about what is a robot. I think everybody understands what is a robot, but if I ask you, can you define what is a robot in simple terms? The difficulty is there is no universal definition of what is a robot, and different textbooks and resources would have their own definition, simply because there is just a wide variety of robots and there is so much complexity in robotics. Still, let's try to identify a somewhat reasonable definition of what is a robot. I would say a robot must consist of three elements. One, it should have some mechanically moving parts. Two, it should have some electrical actuation. And the third component is the most important component, where a robot must sense what is going on and have some reaction or have a reactive motion to that. So, let's say mechanical moving parts, electrical actuation, and by electrical actuation I simply mean some sort of motors that make the mechanical parts move, and the third part is sensing and reaction, and this is usually based on some pre-coded logic that the roboticists program on the robot. Now, despite having clearly defined these three elements, it is still hard to decide in many instances whether an object is really a robot or not. A common example of what is a robot would be a robotic vacuum cleaner that operates autonomously at homes. On the other end of the spectrum, a chat bot, even though we call it a bot, is not a robot by this definition. But in some instances, like in cars, there are a lot of smaller subsystems that do satisfy all three elements, but it is hard to decide whether a car is a robot or not. If it's an autonomous vehicle, yes, it's a little easier to see that it's a robot, but a regular car is a little harder to decide. Nonetheless, with these three components, let's also try to list down most common types of robots, and you might have seen some of these. You have no doubt seen robotic arms. So let me say types of robots. And this is also a never-ending list, but we'll identify just a few common types. So first one would be manipulators. Second one, this is perhaps the most favorite robot of people starting out in robotics, just aerial robots or drones. And they are called UAVs. You have mobile robots. These are typically wheeled ground robots. And then you have underwater robots. And when they are autonomous, you call them autonomous underwater vehicles. And there are a few more. You can have soft robots. You can have even micro robots. And many other such categorization. Now, with increasing complexity in robotics, you have a lot of higher level robots, for instance, exoskeletons, humanoid robots, quadrupeds, which may have some of these elements in them, but they have a higher degree of complexity. We can also think of robots in terms of functions, and you can classify them in terms of, let's say, what function they perform. You can say surgical robots, you can say autonomous vehicles, you can say, industrial robots, exoskeletons, quadrupeds, bipeds, or humanoids. So as you can see, there are many ways to classify robots. So to wrap up, we look for these three elements when when trying to decide whether something is a robot. But even with these three well-defined components, it can be difficult to identify in some cases whether something is a robot or not. And there are many varieties of robots that are coming up. So it's a really exciting field.